Okay, we're resuming our broadcast. We got a very clear signal from the yin-yang process. The computer had a hissy fit and shut this down for a minute, and so I had to rethink, what is the yin-yang process trying to tell me? Maybe it wanted me to show a picture of Dr. Strauss as he existed and exists, so we can focus on slapping. I think Mother Nature wants to slap. That was what the computer was telling me. Mother Nature wants to slap that Dr. Strauss. So let's slap that Dr. Strauss. Let's see if we can bring up a screen share showing that Dr. Strauss. All right, looks like we're going to have to bring it up as a graphic. Hold on one moment here. We're going to slap Dr. Strauss for the entire universe to see. Dr. Strauss is going to be slapped. I'm going to slap Dr. Strauss. May I assist you? We're getting a call. May I assist you? May I assist you? I'm sorry, what are you calling about? Oh, I'm sorry, we can't talk right now. We're doing something that's very important, but thank you for calling. Thank you. You know, I got another input from the universe just now that was very clear that I'm getting ahead of myself and there's something else I need to address first. Very clear input from the Mother, Father, Goddess, God, that I neglected to focus on somebody else that I'm going to focus on right now, because apparently that is the priority even before Dr. Strauss. Even before Dr. Strauss, we have to focus on somebody else. Okay. Okay. Why did we get into this position, and why am I in this position of trying to bail you out of the mess that we made? Here's the reason. And I'm also going to call one of his family while we're on the phone. I I'm supposed to slap this guy first, publicly, and I've already slapped him in front of a couple thousand churches and synagogues and places that are concerned with democracy. I attempted marriage with this guy. That was my mistake. I was prematurely egalitarian, and so was he. And I also failed to meet in a gathering with the women of his family. But more important than my failure on that was his failure to stay loyal in his support of the issue of parity that his wife had run for president on. His name is, I'll call him Scott. Let's call him Scott. We have pictured here with Judas and with Benedict Arnold. Why are we putting him with the most famous of world traitors? To demonstrate something, that all of these traitors originally were for an important revolutionary step toward peace, culture, and democracy, and then reneged. And when a man reneges on balance of gender, it is a more serious crime to the Mother, Father, Goddess, God. It's bad enough when women do that. Bad when women do that. But when men do that, it's particularly considered not good. So let's call one of his family and make sure that we know. We have already sent, we're going to ask him about the breastfeeding on this family too, because I guarantee you that all of these men were not trained, nor were their families trained to particularly appreciate breastfeeding and Mother Nature. As you can see, he has low vision. He has low vision, and he came into the world with low vision at birth because his mother was a smoker and likely did not get optimal breastfeeding either. All of these men were embedded in patriarchy, and the women of their families were embedded in patriarchy without using the word. This man, his betrayal was his original dream was an egalitarian Star Trek experience for all of the world. But he betrayed it because of a lack of adequate trust also in parental figures and support from women in the family. That was because I put the cart before the horse, and so did he. And when we attempted a marriage and also at a distance from our family, it broke down and it regressed all of our family when that happened. I, with the support of Mother, Father, Goddess, God, as I have right now, recognize that his lapse was a Judas-like and Benedict Arnold-like betrayal, and therefore particularly egregious in its impact of all the women and all the youth, not only of our direct and known family, but millions of families. So this is a systemic crime, a systemic sin of great magnitude, but now is known to thousands of congregations around North America and the world. We are awaiting this family's ability to recover, but the first step that we have to take is make public and hold accountable the villainy. It is villainy because look at the situation now. Since he did that, many more baby girls were aborted. Many more women around the world in poverty have succumbed or been forced into sexual trafficking. Wars have erupted all over. Nuclear weapons are possibly to be used from that lapse of this man. That's why the computer shut down and wanted me to do this first. I want to call one of his family members who I think would most understand this. We're going to make that our first call that you hear on our hearing. What I also am trying to teach the women of my world is that they have a right to hold men accountable for serious error. My sister has a right to hold Dr. Strauss accountable as much as her own mother. She has a right to hold patriarchy as a system accountable, and anybody who doesn't stand against it accountable. Now the reason I'm doing this hearing is we have another rogue set of males in our family whose offices I will also call to account. Now, I've already told this rogue that this email has been sent out about him and that this broadcast would occur. He already knows. He already knows that we're dealing with this. So let's call one of his casinas if I can. I don't have a direct number for her. I'll try to reach one of her colleagues.
When you have finished, press pound for further options or hang up to send.
Hello, Tina. My name is Dr. Estrella Marayama Rajel, One Family to Power True Q. I am currently broadcasting on Hangouts on air. And as I told you when I called the other day, and I'm trying to get this message to Julie, who is your colleague there in Chicago. She is my cousina. I am currently shaming her cousin, who I attempted marriage with, not so much because of the marital. I was wrong to get married so soon, when I did before we had achieved parity on this planet. But I am shaming him for his reneging, his Judas-like and Benedict Arnold-like behavior on reneging on the egalitarian culture that he once sought under very complicated pressures of our family and culture. But nevertheless, it is important for women to hold their cousins accountable for things that create a lesser world for them. And Julie needs to hold this man, her first cousin, who was my attempted husband, accountable. And so do you, Tina. And I am broadcasting on Hangouts on air. I'm calling him by his middle name, Scott. That is his middle name, but Julie will know who it is. And I want her to know that I sent an email to many thousands of people showing him pictured with Judas and Benedict Arnold. Because we need to teach women in our culture that it is okay to hold men accountable to gender parity. And if I don't do it with this man first, I am not a good model for the rest of women. Now, there are other men in her family.
That has been reached. Please call back if you wish to leave another message. To send, press 1. To change, press 2. To review, press 3. To set message options, press 4. To mark your messages as urgent, press 1. As private, press 2. To request a return receipt, press 3. To clear all of these options, to send, press 1. To message sent.
Okay, now we're apparently going to have to stop our broadcast for the moment because we're getting a little bit close to the time when we're usually sending some emails. And we're going to come back within an hour or two and continue our broadcast and talk about Dr. Strauss and other cousins of this family. I now regard this man simply as a cousin, and in fact, that's what he was before I attempted prematurely marriage with him, and also before I made the error with him of not going into the nexus of where our families were and gathering women. The bonobo step of gathering women is a necessary step as a reparative stage before you can pull out of patriarchy. And by pulling out of patriarchy, you're pulling out of war, of waste and worry, and you're pulling into paradise, peace, and plenty. Now we'll get to the details on that. But to renege on gender parity, when you have the ability to do something positive for it, and you have someone in your midst who's attempting to get your support, and you don't give it, is a very bad sin for women, but it's even a worse sin for men. Even worse. So that's why I think the computer had its conniption fit. It wanted me to focus on this first, do this first, do this first. So we've done that, and we'll come back and do more of a broadcast in a little while and continue on our issue of breastfeeding, and also connect with another branch of our family who's been doing its domination techniques toward me. And I will show you how the failures of each of the cousins of our family, our first cousins, and this more distant cousin that came into the family, but not so very distant, and others, all ripple affected into a sociopathic behavior among boardrooms of this country, and particularly in the media, and shut down our younger men's development in the mode of Atlantis. To a certain extent, it retarded it. It set it back, and shut down our young women's involvement in Atlantis to some extent. As a model for them. In other words, a government in which women were fully equal. They were set back by his behavior, and we all paid a price. My sister paid a price. Marion and Hadass paid a price. Everybody in the world paid a price for that reneging. So I have held him publicly responsible. I want to show my sister and other women who have Stockholm Syndrome that it is okay, and the Mother, Father, Goddess, God will find a way to help you say, this man, and this man did do some not very major, but typical of many families in this culture, pushing, shoving, degrading, mental abuse, etc., at various stages after he fell from grace, after he stopped doing what he was doing in the right direction. And that's very common among the families of North America. There's a lot of cousins who are degrading or ignoring their cousinas, their sisters, their wives, and many, many dimensions. And some of them are called husbands, and some of them are called fathers, and some of them are called uncles. But what they are doing is looking out for the male gender first, before they understand that the female gender deserves some reparation for thousands of years of forced degradation. All you have to read the headlines of what's going on in this world with misogyny. Men who do not stand up for that deserve derision publicly until they turn themselves around, and then they can become co-secretary generals, co-saviors too. So what we are here, in a sense, giving away is for Judas to redeem himself, for Benedict Arnold to redeem himself, and for the women of the families of such men to redeem themselves. And we'll get back to that. So we'll come back in about a little while. Let me put on the back the justice. I tell you, that was why the computer made its noise for me. It wanted me to do that first. Wanted me to do that first, and so I've done that. We'll be back for an additional broadcasting today, tomorrow, the next day. We'll be sending lots of emails and letting people have these broadcasts in their hand so they'll know. This man goes by a patronym. But in a just world, in a world like that of Spain and the Netherlands today, he would have a name that contained both the maternal and the paternal branches. He wanted to, the man that I just showed you, but he was caught in patriarchy, and it didn't let him, and he didn't stand up to it. And it was that cowardice that deprived him of his own dream and upset your dreams. So let's fix that, and we're going to make sure he knows and gets a copy of this broadcast relatively soon. We'll be back in a little while.